World War II was a battle that shook the entire world. But there was one person who might have stopped Hitler even before this war began. This is the story of Winston Churchill and his fight against the policy of appeasement. In the 1930s, Western powers like the UK and France followed the policy of appeasement, under which they would agree to the demands of aggressive powers like Italy, Japan, and Nazi Germany to avoid war. Mostly, they were dependent on this policy because after World War I, they were not prepared to enter any international conflict. The first example of this policy can be seen in 1931 when Japan, a member of the League of Nations, began to invade China through Manchuria. And Britain, France and the League of Nations, none of the three do anything about it. After this, Italy invades an African country, Ethiopia, and even then, France, Britain and the League of Nations do nothing. Seeing all this, Hitler becomes quite motivated and realizes that even if he violates the Treaty of Versailles, then, so maybe the Western powers will not retaliate. And that's what happens. First, Hitler occupies the Rhine line, against which neither Britain nor France do anything. After this, Hitler annexes Austria as well, and Britain and France remain silent against this too. After this, Hitler demands the Sudetenland, which was a part of Czechoslovakia. Instead of stopping Hitler, Neville Chamberlain signs the Munich Agreement, in which the Sudetenland is given to Nazi Germany without Czechoslovakia's consent. Winston Churchill continuously opposed Chamberlain and the other Western leaders' policy of appeasement. Winston Churchill was so unhappy with Chamberlain's policy that he said, "You were given the choice between war and dishonor. You chose dishonor and you will have war." And as Churchill said, something like that happens. In 1939, Hitler breaks his promises and invades Poland. And now, because both Britain and France had promised Poland that if Hitler invaded Poland, they would declare war against Hitler in return. Reluctantly, both France and Britain have to fight a war against Nazi Germany. And at this moment, all Western leaders realize that the Winston Churchill they had been ignoring all this time was actually right. Finally, Neville Chamberlain resigns and King George makes Winston Churchill the next Prime Minister of Britain. Although after this, Britain and France, with the help of the US, win the Second World War. But if Winston Churchill had been made Prime Minister earlier, or if his advice had been followed, then perhaps Britain and France could have prepared themselves better for World War II. And perhaps could have stopped this war before it even started. But what's done is done. Ultimately, Winston Churchill united the entire world against Hitler, and in the end, the Allied powers defeated the Axis powers, eradicating fascism from the world. But the question is, if the policy of appeasement was so so, why were the Western powers relying on this policy? Well, actually, their main reason was the communist uprising happening in the East. They wanted to stop it, and basically that is why they allowed fascism to grow in Germany and Italy. So that fascism acts like a buffer between communist states and democratic states. Because obviously the fascist states were quite extremist. And because of their extremist policies, they were an excellent barrier between the communist world and the democratic world. If you like this video, then please like it and follow Hindustani history to watch more such videos. And yes, do you also think that the policy of appeasement is actually the main reason for World War II? If so, please let us know in the comment section.